It is time for another album review, and this time it's this band, Brutality. Not actually, I'm not going to review this particular album in morning, but their other album. The band, well, the X-band, it has unfortunately disbanded, broke up last year, but the band came from Tampa, Florida, so a very big death metal area, death metal scene from the very late 80s and continuing their golden age throughout early 19s. So this is death metal band, of course. A little bit about the band's history first. Like many other death metal bands that came from Tampa, Florida area, this band also was formed in late 80s, I think. But their first album came 93, and this album that I'm going to review is their second album, called When the Sky Turns Black. Of course, I think it reads to you in mirrored, but anyway, so this is their second album, released in 1994, so the year after their first album that was called Screams of Anguish. And then they made a third album, which is this In Mourning, not Morning, Mourning. It would be hilarious for death metal album to have a title In Mourning. Anyway, that's my own joke about it. A really lazy one. But first, I'm gonna zip my 7-Up sugar-free here. So I can continue with this. So, so the band was formed in late 80s, and then they released their first album 93, the second album 94, and their third album 96. Then they broke up, I think, in 97, and very briefly reformed in, I think, 2002 or something, but they didn't really release anything else than an unreleased EP. But then they reformed second time, so after that they broke up again, and second time they reformed, I think, in early 2010, something like that, or 2012. And then they made a comeback, full-length fourth album, Sea of Ignorance, in 2015, 6 years ago. But they unfortunately broke up, I think this time for good, but you never know. Last year, 2020, because probably the band has never been so popular, and those bands are really struggling in these times, these pandemic times, and I think it's the reason for their that they broke up was this pandemic, how it affected the band, that they were not be able to tour. They were already working on their fifth album, but that never came, unfortunately. But if they would still reform third time, I think they will be releasing that album that was cancelled. But anyway, yeah, that's about their history and their discography. But let's talk about this particular album. So first I thought I would make a review of this album, their third album, which is their, I think, well, from their three first albums, this is their most unpopular. And I think their first debut album, Screams of Anguish, is their best known album and best received album. Many fans think that that's their best album, and I think also, but I still decided to do well. This is a very close competitor to their debut album. This is almost as good, I would say, even on par, maybe as good as Screams of Anguish. And the band has always been, in from their early 19s to all the way to 2020. They always has been very guitar driven band, so many memorable and just so fucking catchy riffs and solos. This band has so many fucking awesome solos. So their guitarist, which there has been quite many many guitarists on the band throughout their career, but every guitarist has been so good, so good. It's really so guitar heavy, guitar driven band that it's their driving force, absolutely. And like the band name says, Brutality, this is very, I wouldn't say in a category of brutal death metal. No, it's not brutal death metal, but it's, it's very extreme death metal. I would say very extreme death metal. Fast, very catchy, very melodic. Sometimes a little bit slower, but never really a doom metal slow. But yeah, and like I said, there has been so many guitarists throughout their career, but there's always been their cornerstone has been Jeff Acres, their bassist and backing vocalist or second vocalist. Also Scott Reigel, the lead vocalist, which is definitely one of my favorite death metal vocalists of all time. I mean, his vocals are so brutal, but yet very articulate. You can really hear what he says, what he sings about. You can really hear it, because there are so many times there are death metal vocalists that you can't make a shit out of their vocals. But yeah, you can pretty much tell it's brutal, but it's very clear. You can really hear what he sings. So Scott Reigel is a fucking awesome vocalist. This album has also so they always had two guitarists. So yeah, because they are guitar driven, of course they has to have two guitarists. So Don Gates, who is they have two lead guitarists, so that pretty much tells you that normally when there are two guitarists, the other is a rhythm guitarist and the other is lead guitarist, but here there are two lead guitarists. So Don Gates, who also played in their first album, but he didn't play in this third album. And then Brian Hipp, the second lead guitarist, only played in this album, and he unfortunately he passed away, I think in 2008, or was it 2005 or something. So rest his soul. And Jim Coker, the drummer, brilliant drummer who has played drums on all of their first 3 albums, but he didn't play on Sea of Ignorance, their comeback album, their 4th album. But yeah, now let's go through some of the songs. I'm not going to mention all the songs here. There are 10 songs on the album, and first track, their title track, is definitely already one of my favorites, When the Sky Turns Black. Just awesome. Starts with so heavy, so brutal, just great riffs and melodies. Yeah, definitely my amongst my best 3 songs, probably here. And then the second song, Race Defects, is my favorite track. The second track on this album is my favorite, I would say. It starts with a very moody, very atmospheric, not acoustic, but guitar without the distortion. Really atmospheric intro, and then it just bams in your face. Really brutal song, but the intro is just awesome, so good. The whole song is just perfect, I would say. Then the third song, Awakening, it starts with the same, actually, it's very interesting song. It starts with the same intro as Race Defects, the second track. But it's an all it's an instrumental song, and there are no distortions there. It's not acoustic, but guitars without distortion, and it's an instrumental track. Very good, very atmospheric, so good. And then I have to mention the 4th track, Electric Funeral, which might, for some of you, maybe sound familiar, and yes, it's familiar. It's a cover of Black Sabbath song, Electric Funeral. Very good song, but very surprising for Brutality. I mean, I would say in general, when a death metal band makes a cover of Black Sabbath song, it's really surprising. Many times they cover other death metal, band songs. But anyway, really good cover, but of course more brutal and more their style of cover. Then I would skip the 5th song because it's not of my favorites. It's one of the least favorites. But then the 6th song, Screams of Anguish, which finally has the first album that is called Screams of Anguish doesn't have a song title that's called Screams of Anguish. This album has the first album's title track. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but anyway, that's also one of my favorite tracks. Starts from just a torturing screams, like this says, Screams of Anguish. It starts literally with Screams of Anguish. yeah, very interesting intro. Uh, then I would mention the 8-song Artistic Butchery. It's really brutal song, maybe my fourth or even third favorite track from this album. And then there are a Violent Generation, ninth album, which is also just an instrumental song without vocals, but it's brutal song. It's brutal song. Um, so it's not like Awakening, which was really moody and atmospheric and just really quiet song. This is brutal but still instrumental song. And their last, Shrine of the Master, is I would say goes in the middle. Yeah, not one of the best ones, but not the least favorite ones either. So yeah, I would say my three favorite tracks are the first and the second, When the Sky Turns Black, Raised Defects, and Screams of Anguish. They are my three best songs in my opinion. So yeah, like I said, very underrated, criminally underrated and criminally unknown death metal band from Florida, Tampa. Uh, there were so many other, so much more well-known bands, but this really didn't catch, with the other ones, never. So this band was never very much a big name, but still this is definitely one of my favorite death metal bands of all time. Like, this is as good as Morbid Angel, Suffocation, newer bands like Bloodbath, Cannibal Corpse. But actually Cannibal Corpse is not even in my four, 5 best death metal bands. No, it's not. Like, this is Morbid Angel, Suffocation, and Bloodbath. They are all my top favorite death metal bands, definitely. But anyway, it's almost 20 minutes. This reviews goes so quickly. Of course, yeah, I would want to show you the backside and also the CD itself. It's interesting. It's white, not very brutal color, black and white, and a little bit yellow there. But yeah, so of course I'll end this video with my verdict and my rating for this album. So I will give this album a much deserved 9 out of 10. They're on par with their first album, but don't get me wrong, this album, even though it's not as popular as their first 2 albums, this has some very fucking good songs also. It's not as balanced album as their first 2, but there are definitely very good songs on the third album. Very good. Actually, the opening track of this album is, I would say, maybe even my favorite track from the whole band. So my favorite track is not on this album or in the first album. yeah, I would say it's my favorite song. Obsessed called. So fucking good song. Yeah, but unfortunately it doesn't hold up with the same high level throughout the whole album, the third album. But yeah, anyway, not going to talk about that album. This was a review of their second, When the Sky Turns Black. But yeah, on par, in my opinion, with their debut album. And yeah, definitely check this one out. I mean, if you really love death metal in general, old school death metal, and really want to hear a little bit more melodic old school death metal with great solos and just great atmosphere, pick this one up if you can find this. I mean, it's pretty hard to find this album because it has not been reissued and remastered. This is I think this is, yeah, the original release, original 94 release. But anyway, enough. 9 out of 10. Fucking great album. Get it if you really love melodic old school death metal. Fuck yeah. See you in the next video, which is probably again some game related. Yeah, maybe review, maybe this time it's time for game review, who knows, we'll see. But yeah, Brutality, fucking great band. Unfortunately it's not existing anymore, but let's hope they will still someday reform and do a fifth album, maybe. Who knows? But see you in the next one.